Let's go.
Every week, we drop the noise
Drop the stress.
and drop some knowledge.
Welcome to The Drop-In, the college admissions podcast by Decision Drop. If you want to learn more about our services or have Josh and I guide you and your family through this process personally, head over to decisiondrop.com and check us out.
I'm Josh.
I'm Lisa. Let's go.
All right, Lisa, episode 7. Somebody keeps letting us back in the studio, so we're going to keep doing this. So today's topic is one we promised to cover at the end of last week's episode.
Right. Extracurricular activities. Woo. I have been waiting for this episode because families, I think, have been sold a whole story about activities that's just not true.
Yeah, and that story being do everything, list everything. The longer the activity list, the better.
Right. Pack your schedule with clubs and collect a few leadership titles and hope the length of that list matters more than what you actually did.
Yeah, and unfortunately, guys, colleges can see right through all of that. Because here's the thing we need families to understand. So colleges are not evaluating the activity. They're evaluating the student behind that activity.
So honestly, that sentence, Josh, could be the entire episode. But I guess we did promise, a 25-ish minute, not 7-minute podcast. So I think in this one, it's going to be best if we can give examples and explain what we actually mean.
Point of fact, we actually didn't make any promises about the length of episodes, so we could actually end it here. But since, again, we're in the studio, we should probably take some time to get into it.
True.
Alrighty, so we're going to start with the single biggest mindset shift because everything else we talk about is going to flow from there. Colleges are not asking, what did this student do? They're asking, what will this student do on our campus? Your activities are the evidence they use to predict that.
So when an admissions officer looks at your activity list, they're not counting. They're not going, oh, this kiddo has 11 activities, but then that definitely beats this kiddo over here because they only have 7. That is not how this works. They are looking for evidence of 3 things: initiative, depth, and impact.
Yeah, so that's super important, Lisa. So just to make sure, again, since everyone's carefully listening, can you repeat that one more time? Because that's the backbone, really, of our entire conversation today.
I sure can. Okay, we have initiative, depth, and impact, which I think you'll be hearing a lot in this podcast. Did you start something, or did you just show up? Did you stick with something long enough to get good at it and then grow? And did you being there actually change anything?
Yeah, and this matters even more at highly selective schools because when you get into the most competitive schools in the country, everyone applying has good grades and good scores. That's the baseline. It's not a differentiator.
Oh my gosh, so true. Because what separates a student at that level? The most selective colleges are often looking for that self-directed student, right? Connected to a real interest and tied to an actual result. So self-directed. That means nobody had to chase you down to tell you how to do it. Connected to a real interest means you actually care about it. I know, shocker. And it's just not sitting there looking pretty on your resume. And an actual result means something happened because you showed up.
And as an added bonus, if that thing happens outside of school, all the better. Not because in-school activities don't count. They absolutely do. So I want to make sure that everyone hears that. I'm not poo-pooing in-school activities. But because something you pursued outside of the walls of your school on your own time with no teacher assigning to you, no grade being attached to it, that's some of the strongest possible evidence of genuine interest and initiative on the student's part.
Right, because if you think about it, it shows that you did it because you wanted to. Not because it was required and not because it looked good, because you actually cared.
Yeah. So the natural question every student is asking right now is, okay, what should I be doing?
Okay. And I want to answer this in the least college counselor way possible. So what I ask students when they're contemplating what they should put down, I say, what's your jam?
So, I'm going to make a plug here for sound effects and music because this would be a perfect way to insert, that, jam, that sort of thing. But somebody who does it a lot better than me.
Maybe, Josh, you should make these sound effects and then I can invite you to edit the podcast and then you can edit those sound effects in. You think?
I'll take it under advisement.
I'll put it on my list. Yeah. Okay. So what I mean by what's your jam? Right? Because I know I have a lot of Lisa-isms. What do you actually like doing? What makes you happy? What can you spend 3 hours doing and then realize you didn't just spend 3 hours doing it? That's truly where this all starts. Not with, my gosh, what's going to impress Harvard? Start with, what do I care most about to keep doing when nobody is watching? That is what you need to find, and then you need to find ways to go deeper.
Yeah. And if you can tie that genuine interest to your intended major, that's a win-win.
Win-win.
So now your activities and your academic direction are telling the same story about who you are. And that's a powerful, strategic, coherent application.
And I do want to say this very loudly for students in the back. It is completely okay to try something and then decide that you do not like it. I say this all the time, including to adults. You don't know what you don't know. And how do you know you like it if you don't try it?
Exactly. Okay, so Lisa, we're going to take a second to unpack that because I think a lot of students have some anxiety about this.
Oh my gosh, you're right. They do. So students think every activity that I come up with has to become a 5-year commitment that ends with a leadership title, a national award, and maybe a documentary, right? It does not. How are you supposed to know whether you like it unless you try it? You do not know what you don't know. I'm going to circle back to that. Say it again. You do not know what you do not know. Maybe you joined that robotics team thinking it will be your whole personality, and then 3 months in, you realize you would rather do literally anything else. That does not mean that was a failure. What that means is that was information. You learned something real about yourself, and that actually is what matters.
Exactly. And colleges and frankly, life in general value that willingness to try. So the student who explored, took a risk, found out something wasn't for them, and moved toward what actually fit, that's a student who's demonstrating they have the ability to grow.
Right. And here's a little secret. Sometimes the thing that you tried and you didn't like becomes the best essay or supplemental essay that you could write. So maybe that robotics season taught you that you are actually happier collaborating than competing. Or the debate club, it showed you that you care more about listening than winning. Even the experience that doesn't stick with you can reveal something worth writing about. So no experience is wasted if you are going to pay attention.
Yeah, Lisa, that is a great point. So let's get tactical because this is the part that's not talked about enough. And it might be the most important thing that we discussed today in this episode. So the activity itself is not what impresses a college. It's how you write about it.
My gosh, Josh, yes, this is so real. We have seen students who do genuinely incredible things and then write about it in a way that makes it sound painfully boring. And then we have students that take an activity that sounds ordinary on paper and describe it in a way that makes you immediately understand who they are. That's the difference. It's not the activity. The difference is the story and how they tell about their role in it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Common Up Activities section specifically, because you have very little space and every word counts. You basically get about 150 characters per activity description. That's it, which isn't a paragraph. It's barely 2 sentences.
Right. So you cannot waste a single word revisiting and restating the obvious. So if your activity is varsity baseball team, which side note, we would never want you to just state it that obvious, but just for this exercise, you say varsity baseball team. Do not use your precious characters writing, I played baseball on the varsity baseball team. We know it says baseball. Tell us what we cannot see.
So here's a framework for what to actually write. So we recommend students ask yourself 3 questions about every single activity. Did you lead? Did you solve a problem? Did you mentor younger students? Some other questions. Did you grow the membership? Did you start something that didn't exist before you got there?
Those are the verbs that matter. Led, solved, built, grew, mentored, organized, founded, not participated in, or not was a member of, or not helped with. Those passive phrases tell an admissions officer nothing about you. And wherever you possibly can, use numbers. We tell students this every day. Data is your best friend because numbers show the impact in a way that adjective never will.
Yeah, so Lisa, that's a huge point. So students, Don't say you grew the club. Say instead, you grew membership from 8 students to 45 over 2 years. Don't say you raised money for charity. Say you organized a fundraiser that brought in over $3,200 for the local food bank. Don't say you tutored kids. Say you mentored 6 younger students weekly and watched 3 of them raise their math grades a full letter. The numbers do the bragging, so you don't have to in that situation. And they make the impact concrete and believable instead of vague and forgettable.
And by the way, tutoring kids and they got a whole letter grade, like, I love that.
That's big time.
Because think about it this way. Underneath every number is the question colleges really care about. How did you grow? What did you learn? What changed because of your experience? The number is the evidence. The growth is the story, right? So a student who can say, I started with absolutely no idea what I was doing. And by the end, I had built something that continued after I left the school or after I left the club. That's showing something real. And that is the student that admissions officers are going to remember.
Exactly. Okay, Lisa, so switching gears just a little bit, because talking a little bit about something that a lot of families don't realize. Different schools actually value different things. So while things like initiative and depth and impact, they are universal, the specific flavor a school is looking for can vary. And this ties directly back to what we said in episode 5 about reading the mission statement for each school.
First of all, I love that you did a callback. And 2 episodes ago, love that, Josh. Number 2, I think this is a great thing because we did this last week. And I think that it was such a positive comments about how we were just going through and giving different examples, but they're concrete examples.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the University of Michigan, right? So Michigan, it's a huge, dynamic, complex place. So what stands out there is leadership and initiative because they value students who can operate effectively in large, fast-moving environments. If you show that you thrived in a big, busy setting and took the lead within it, that can resonate at a place like Michigan because it mirrors exactly the kind of environment their campus actually is.
Right. And I say this too with families that go on campus tours. When you're at a campus tour and you look around and you are one of 100 people, and it is a school like Michigan or like Texas or Florida, right? Even if you're in a tour group of 50, that is a good example to talk to your kids about of this is what potentially an average class size here looks like. But if you're at a smaller school, there might be 5 or 10 people on your tour. And that again is a good opportunity to see, oh, this is what it could feel like being in a classroom. So we've talked about a big school. Let's talk about Dartmouth, right? So Dartmouth is smaller and it's known for having that close-knit community. So they want students who will contribute meaningful to that kind of environment. So someone who will show up for their classmates, someone who will show up for people, someone who will just make that community better. And Josh, what word do you think I'm about to say? What word do we think is going to appear again?
Well, Lisa, since we talked about this before recording, I can safely say initiative.
Initiative. Ding, 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 ding. You are right. Again, it pops up every single time. Dartmouth wants to see a student who can contribute meaningful to a tight community. Someone, like we said, who is going to take that initiative to show up for their classmates. Someone who's going to take that initiative to show up for people and make that community even better. Again, initiative. That reflects the kind of environment Dartmouth actually is.
Right. And students, notice what's happening here. Both schools reflect the kind of environment they are. Michigan values operating in a large dynamic setting because that's what Michigan is. Dartmouth values close community contribution because that's what Dartmouth is. The activities that resonate are the ones that show you'll thrive in their specific environment.
Absolutely. Okay, so we had Michigan, we've had Dartmouth. Let's give one more. How about Duke? What do you got?
Okay, so Duke is a great third example because it's a combination. At Duke, you often see value on leadership plus research plus community impact. So they want students who can lead others while also creating something tangible. Students who can operate at a high academic level and turn that into real world impact in a community.
Right. So 3 schools, 3 different or slightly different flavors, but do you know what's underneath all 3?
Yes, Lisa, I do. Again, we talked about this before we got on the air. Initiative. It keeps coming back.
It keeps coming back every single time. It never goes away, y'all. So if you take nothing else tactical from this episode, whatever you do, show that you took ownership. You started something. You fixed something. You noticed a need and did something about it. You did not just stand there in the group photo wearing the matching t-shirt. And you know how much I love matching t-shirts.
We're not getting matching t-shirts. So the way for you to figure out the specific flavor each school wants is the same advice we gave for supplements. Read the mission statement, understand the environment, then show them how who you are already fits into that specific community.
Read the mission statement. Look, goes back to it every time.
See, if we had like some effects, we could have like bouncing across, read the mission statement, so, or like a ticker tape. Anyway.
Or a t-shirt that says read the mission statement. Look, it can go both ways.
I like my idea better. Anyway, Lisa, it's time for hot take or hard truth. So since you want to talk about t-shirts and stuff, why don't you go first?
Okay. Sure. Don't mind if I do. All right. So hot take, hard truth. Okay. Here's mine. A student with 3 activities that genuinely care will almost always out-apply a student with 12 activities that join just to pad that resume. Colleges are not handing out points based on how many club meetings you manage to sit through. They want to know where you invest your time, where you invest your energy, and where you invest in yourself. So stop collecting activities. Start committing to the ones that actually matter to you. And that's a really good lesson to know now, because colleges are going to see, how are you going to be on their campus, right? Like, how are you going to fit into their community? And if you're going to be involved in these activities here, you're probably going to be involved in those activities at their campus. And this is a side note. This is kind of like hard take, hot truth, like subplot A. Use the directions on the Common App. So when they ask you to put them in order of preference, just put them in order of preference. That's what's so important. Because again, it goes back to telling your story. So your activity list on Common App, when you're listing your order of importance, colleges are going to look at that and they're going to see what's important to you. And they're going to then picture you on their campus with those same activities. So that's like my hard take and then my sub-hard take.
Okay, so I'll give you points for the first hot take because that was a pretty strong one. I wasn't aware that we were adding subplots or doing side quests on these. So
my bad. Next time.
So you're changing things up midstream. Okay, so here's my hot take. Students, the activity that looks the least impressive on paper is often the one that reveals the most about you. So that part-time job at the grocery store, the care you give an aging grandparent every afternoon, the tiny online community you built around a niche interest nobody else in your school shares. Admissions officers are not just looking for prestige. They're looking for evidence of a real human being who shows up, takes initiative, there's that word again, and cares about something. Sometimes the most ordinary sounding activity is the most revealing one in the entire application.
And often the hardest working one, right? So a kiddo working 20 hours a week to help their family is demonstrating more grit and responsibility than a kid with a fancy title that they were handed.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Okay, another transition, drop the mic time. So again, if we maybe have like a microphone like drop from the sky. Anyway, okay, so Lisa, drop the mic time. Take us home.
Okay, let's see. I'm never ready for this. Okay, so here is what I want every family to remember. Stop asking what looks good to colleges. Start asking, what do I actually care about? Because that activity, it's not the whole story. The activity is not the whole story, y'all. The student behind the activity is. Colleges are looking for initiative, depth, and impact. And those things usually grow from a genuine interest. So find your jam and then go deeper. Try things, including things you may not end up loving, because you cannot know what fits until you give yourself permission to explore. And when it's time to write everything down, do not just tell a college what you did. Show them how you led, what you built, what you changed, what you grew, who you helped, and what you learned along the way. And for all the information we give you today, use numbers, y'all. Use numbers. Be specific. Tell the truth. Because the students who get remembered are not necessarily the ones with the longest lists. They are the ones whose lists tell us something real about the person behind them.
That's a good one. Okay. So my final thought for students this week is to look at whatever you're involved in right now and ask yourself a simple question. Am I simply a member or am I making this experience better? right? Because joining activity is really just the beginning. You don't need to be the president or the captain or the founder to have an impact. Maybe you welcome the new student who does not know anybody. Maybe you suggest a better way to organize something, take responsibility when nobody else volunteers, or help the group reach people it was not reaching before. So my final thought for students this week is to look at whatever you're involved in right now and ask yourself one question. Am I simply a member, or am I making this experience better? Because students, joining activity is only the beginning. You don't need to be the president, the captain, or the founder to make an impact. Maybe you welcome the new student who does not know anyone. Maybe you suggest a better way to organize something, take responsibility when nobody else volunteers, or help the group reach people it was not reaching before. That difference between simply showing up versus finding a way to contribute is exactly what colleges are trying to understand. They want to see how you participate in a community and what changes because you are a part of it. Because the gap between showing up and making something better is exactly the gap colleges are reading for. Close that gap, and that activity becomes that much more meaningful.
My gosh, Josh, yes, like that's the work. And that is worth doing right. Great point, Josh.
See, ending on a high note. Okay, so next week on Drop In, provided that the keys to the studio still work, we're going to get into something else that stresses families out at the exact moment they can least afford it. Letters of recommendation.
The letters of recommendation. We get asked all the time, like who to ask, what to ask, when to ask, how to ask, and how to make sure that person that you're asking is actually going to say something that is specific and that's meaningful about the student. Because they were a pleasure to have in class is very lovely. But as Josh and I know, since we were on the other side, it is not exactly going to knock anyone out of their chair, and that is not what you want.
Exactly. So yeah, generic recommendation letters are a prime example of a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of students that you can do to prevent that.
Right. So you are definitely going to want to come back and hear this one.
Don't miss it.
So we are Decision Drop, making your college journey collaborative, simple, and most importantly, yours. And if you want Josh and me to help your kiddo find meaningful ways to get involved, build on their interests they already have, and tell their story authentically, head over to decisiondrop.com and check us out.
Thanks for dropping in. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.